guys, welcome back to another Lucky Man Survival. So today we're doing something a little fun, a little project today. So I have an event coming up here in just a few weeks where we're going to be doing some shooting in some high desert, trying to do some camouflage stuff, pretty much just, getting out there, training, LARPing as people call it, and just having a good time. But for me, especially in the area I'm in, especially in the places where I do classes and stuff like that, usually it's more greens, more dark brown, stuff like that. But where we're going to be shooting and where we're going to be doing this event at is actually more of a high desert location. So because of that, we're actually going to be spray painting some of our gear today. So what we're going to be covering is the do's and don'ts, why we cover and why we spray paint our gear to change it, and most importantly is some tips and tricks that I've learned over the years that actually help and benefit us when we're actually going out and spray painting gear, getting it all prepped for events. Now, here, I'm just going to switch it over. I do apologize. Usually I'm going to be doing this on a camera, but my camera's being finicky with me. So, we're going to be spray painting some holsters. We're going to be spray painting our gloves, one of our long distance spotting scopes, and one of the tripods that goes with it. And basically, we're just going to be making our gear a little bit more accessible out into a desert area. So the first thing you need when you're doing something like this is you need the proper paint tape, okay? You do not want to do something like this with duct tape. It'll get sticky on your gear. It'll just mess up everything. So painter's tape, gaffer's tape, I prefer using just the blue tape because then I can see lines a little bit better. And basically what the tape is going to do is it's going to cover knobs. It's going to cover any writing that you want to keep present. For some guys, they like to keep their optics and stuff, the names and stuff out. I really don't give a shit. But for a lot of people, they like to cover the knobs. And for me, the only thing I ever really worry about protecting is my dials on my scopes. And the reason for that is even if you've used it a million times, having that reference material is very important. A second thing is making sure that paint does not go into your barrel, doesn't go into any nooks and crannies, doesn't cover any glass that you don't want to have damaged, especially when it comes to the spotting scope, especially because that's like a $250 spotting scope. So I definitely want to protect the glass on that. Another thing is, especially with holsters, if you are painting a holster a different color, but the holster itself isn't, let's just say you don't really care how it looks or how it comes out, but you don't want it to impede the gun into going into the holster and stuff like that. For me, I never spray paint the inside of a holster. I only spray the outside. So, just for an example here, and this is just to show you how you tape things off. So with this, I taped off the opening of the holster. This is just a cheap Black Hawk holster, so don't care about spray painting it. And then if you can see in here, right where the actual release mechanism is, I painted it off just to make sure that no paint gets into the locking mechanisms and jams it up. Besides that, everything else is pretty much available to spray. Now with my spotting scope, I don't have any like dial heads on it. It just dials itself as is. So I have some covers on it, which I will be spray painting the covers, but the lenses are protected. But for me, making sure that I can mount it properly onto the tripod is very important for me. So I'm going to cover up that spot where it actually goes onto my tripod. But besides that, it's the only place it's covered. Now for gloves and stuff like that, if you want to be meticulous and, keep the grip unpainted, you can do that. For me, all I pretty much do is I just lay the glove out flat and put the black side down because I don't want the grip to get damaged from the paint. Besides that, I don't care about the logos, anything like that. These are pretty good 511 gloves, very cheap. They're like $7. But for me, I just want to make sure that I can keep my hands protected from the heat of the barrel when I'm shooting. Besides that, though, there's not a lot of things that you need to protect or cover. The next thing that you want to make sure that you have, if you're like me and you can't go to work with your hands covered in paint, is some gloves. Doesn't matter what kind of gloves it is, just anything that'll protect your hands from the paint. I'm just using medical gloves, nothing crazy. Then the final two things that you'll definitely need when doing something like this. One is something to make those horizontal lines on your gear. Now, there's a lot of speculation in the gun shooting world, the camo world, whatever, about how to paint your rifles, guns, stuff like that. For me, I like to make it to where however my gun is positioned on my body, when it is not in the ready position, is where I like to create these little horizontal lines. Now, on my body, it's going to be kind of in a diagonal position. But when the gun is at ready, it'll be a little bit more of a shape like this. Now, for me, I like to use cardboard, but if you notice, I don't have any sharp edges because I'm going to create these ridges through this cardboard. So for me, it's very important that you don't have any straight lines. Straight lines is what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to break up the shape, shine, sheen, and all the fun S's when it comes to your camouflage. So for me, I like to break up the outline. I like to be able to create nice texturized lines when I'm painting without having to go into extreme depth. And then a second thing is, now this is just because, I like to make my stuff look a little good, it's not a big thing, but having some sort of stencil lining. So this is going to create like a snake-like print once it is sprayed, and it'll kind of just pop it out, and it'll break up some of that outline and some of those lines on the parts that I'm painting. You don't need to do this, just the solid lines and just kind of a sporadic spray pattern is kind of what we're going for. However, I do like to texturize it a little bit just to make it look a little bit nicer, but this is not needed. But something to create those broken lines is, a lot of people will say, oh no, just, do little light strokes with the paintbrush. I'm not like that. For me, I like to actually create ridges that break it up more like a rock shape. But what we're going to do is we're going to throw on our gloves, we're going to pull out the paint that we're going to be using, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, guys, so got my gloves on. Now, if you're like me and you're too lazy to take your watch off, make sure you cover your face. So what we're going to be using today is just the standard Rust-Oleum camouflage. This is probably the best paint, I think, just because it is a matte finish. It's very flat, so it does not create any kind of shine, which is something we're trying to avoid. Another thing is that the way that the paint itself actually kind of forms to the object, you don't need to do... Some people will actually try and put like degreaser or things like that to actually stick it to the items a little bit better. I have found that I don't really need to do that because I don't really care about the scuff marks and the little imperfections, because if anything, the battle-worn look makes it look a little bit more genuine. So we're going to be using some tan, and then I do have some flat army green. This is a lighter green. For me, when it comes to camouflage, I always like to caution on the side of I can make things darker, but it is extremely hard to make things lighter in nature. So for me, I like to get the nice blend with the terrain. So where we're going, there's going to be a lot of dead grass and like sagebrush, which in a lot of instances are going to be like a lighter brownish green, and then a lot of sand, a lot of dirt. So having that tannish undertone is going to be really important for actually creating a blended look. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to get my camera positioned here, and we're going to go ahead and start spraying some stuff. Okay, guys, so to start off, we're going to go ahead and start off with our spotting scope. Now, like I said, you're not going to want to do really heavy colorations. You kind of want to spritz it. I usually hold about 4 to 6 inches away. We're going to do nice little stroke patterns, just like that. Like I said, you can get on this, get on all those parts, not a big deal. Now see, that's just with one pass. With the natural green that the actual lens itself, or the actual material that this had, this gives us a nice sand coloration. Now if you notice, there's still a lot of heavy black on the back side. So what I like to do is just kind of give it a nice little spritz like this. Very nice even strokes, but notice it's a little sporadic, but I'm not too worried about that. Okay, now a lot of people will say, oh well, let it dry. For me, I don't mind the micro scratches and the markings that it gets from rolling around. So for me, I'm much more interested in how it blends into the environment. And in nature, nothing looks good. So this right here, you can see how it's like a darker tone. I'm going to hit that, and I'm going to let the natural coloration of this kind of preen out. Now, this right here, there's a little reflective cap right here. We're going to go ahead and hit that, just a little double tap. Now, it looks shiny now, but as soon as this dries, that goes all away very easily. We're just going to hit the top of that cap, and we're going to go ahead and hit the base of the head of our scope's cap. Pretty simple stuff. As you can see, it didn't damage the texturing because this actually has a very nice grip to it. I'm gonna get that black broken up a little bit. Now, I could stop here. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit it with some of that light green and give it just a little bit more of a naturalization. See, just like that. And it just breaks up that line ever so slightly. Like I said, nice even strokes. Different strokes for different folks, I guess. And something that I like to do is right on the top here, I'm going to hit it with some bigger splotches. And basically what that does is it just creates this nice, clean, uniform look. And see, there's still some black on there, but that is okay, because that's just natural camouflage. And then we're just going to hit that front cap here, just like that. And this is pretty much done. Now, if you really want to go nuts and say, like, cover this up, just do that. Nice little tap of it, covers the name of it, and we're all done. You do not need to do second coatings unless you do a heavy first coat and then want to progress from there. So say if you were turning a black rifle tan and then coloring it, you're definitely going to want to give it a second coat. But for something like this, where all that paint's going to catch on to that texturization, this is absolutely perfect. Came out absolutely wonderful. And then we're just going to go ahead and flip this up, and we're going to let this dry. I'm going to move this out of the way. Next, we're going to move on to the holster. Now, this is so much easier than the spotting scope because there's nothing that I can damage here. And for me, I'm just going to do a nice little heavy coat on the front, just like so. And see, and that's pretty good. But we're going to hit it just a little bit more. Give it a nice outer look to it. We're going to flip this over here. And like I said, you can let it sit. You can flip it over. It's not going to hurt it. Now this one, I do want to give it a little bit more of a staunch coloration. So for me, I'm going to let it sit for a minute, let it dry for, maybe 5 minutes. And then come back over and touch up those spots. Now, for me, I am going to just do one nice little brush of green over the top of it because it'll adhere to itself just like that. Notice it's not super hard, just a nice little even green stroke. If you did a little too much, just touch it up with the tan and we're good. Now, I don't need to really worry about how the back of this looks because this will be up against my body, but where it is showing at the actual side of it, that's the important thing that you want to be very guarded from. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this netting, and this is where, the style comes into play. I'm going to take that flat green. We're just going to hit that real quick. Now, I don't know how well you can see it here. It gives a nice little snake coloration. If you want to hit it a little bit more, the more you hit it, the better the actual snake coloration comes out. If you want it to be really bold, then you might want to let it dry a little bit and then hit it with a fresh color because that tan likes to break up that green really hard. Now again, it's very shiny, but we're not going to worry about that because as it dries, it will matten out. So So I'm just going to hit the side there a little bit. And we're just going to go ahead and let that dry. Don't need to do anything special with it. Take this off, set this off to the side. Easy peasy. Another thing is make sure you put down a tarp of some kind. I just use a trash bag because, you know, we're survivalists, and if we paint our wife's patio, she will kill us. Agreed, gentlemen? So, now what I'm going to do here, so now I do have this area painted, so I'm going to be very careful where I put my gloves next. I'm just going to kind of get them out of that paint, just like so. Make sure the thumb areas are exposed. I like to flatten them out a little better than that. Just like so. Kind of hard to do with one hand, guys. And then, so this, just like the spotting scope, started out green. So hitting it with a tan is actually going to give it a nice overtone. So I'm just going to do one nice little heavy brush there. Now notice the fabric didn't like to take it, so give it a little bit of a heavier spritz there. And we're just going to let them sit for a little bit. Now, you may not be able to see it, but it pretty much lightened this up. And then we're just going to take this green. We're just going to tap our fingers a little bit with it. And we're going to let that dry. Now, this will need a second coat because the fabric does not like to catch the paint. So the best way that I've learned over the years is to hit this a second time after everything is calmed down and dried a little bit, and then we're going to come back to it. So I'm going to let that dry, and we're going to move on to our tripod. Now, see this little mounting bracket right here? All I'm going to do is I'm going to take some tape, and I'm just going to cover that up. There we go. Instant movie magic. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off again with that tan overcoat. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect, but we want to break up a lot of that heavy black. And don't forget, if you're doing a tripod, see all that black? Hit that too. And flip this over a little bit. Hit that backside. Okay, so now this right here is a nice starting coat. Now, for me, I definitely want to make sure that it's going to blend into the closer, lower environments that we'll see. So for me, green. Nice, even strokes. And then if you want to get a little fancy, just take this netting along the side of it. And you want to make sure that it's touching the material. Because if you don't touch it, it won't come out. So, I want to make sure that it's actually sitting there to break up the squirts of the paint. See, you can see it coming out here really nicely. I'll rotate this around. Hold this nice and firm against there. And voila, nice snake pattern. I'm going to do this to each of the legs, like I said, just to break it up a little bit. And you can literally hit it with any color that you want. You want to break it up, give it some worn look, rub it in a little bit. And beautiful. Look at how well that turned out. It's got a little bit of the black still in it. Might want to hit that backside just a little bit more on this one. Really clear out that black. But perfection only works for those who want it to look perfect. I don't want it to look perfect. I want it to look like nature. And although nature is beautiful, it in itself is not perfect. It has a lot of broken colors and shapes and shines. So, as you can start to see, a lot of that texturization is broken up. The color starts to pattern out real nice. And as this dries, it will have this beautiful snake pattern on it. Have nice rubs going on there, but nothing too crazy. Alrighty guys, well, that's kind of how I have it for today. And I'll go ahead and upload a video when we actually do the event, and I can show you how the gear ended up turning out. But some of the main things you got to remember is, one, you can't really mess up a camo paint, because as long as you are breaking up the outline and stuff, you know, if you add patterns, changing colors, it could be darker, it could be lighter. No matter how you do it, the biggest thing is you don't want anything in nature to look so big and bold. As long as you're breaking up that look, everything's going to look wonderful. Trust me. Alrighty guys, so it's been about 2 hours since I finished spray painting and let everything sit out and dry. And I think it looks absolutely spectacular. So we have some of that nice coating on there. The snake's color didn't come out as good as I wanted, but you know, can't always win with those. But remember how I said that the holsters and stuff, everything that was really shiny, would come out a little bit better. So this is the finished product. Very matte coloration. You can kind of see that snake skin coloration on the spotting scope and stuff like that. But that's it, guys. There's nothing really to it, you know. So I hope you guys have learned a little something from this. If not, at least entertained you for 15-20 minutes or so. But I just want you guys to remember that, you know, when it comes down to your gear, it's what you are using it for and why we are actually camouflaging it and stuff like that. Because when you're actually out in the field and you are using it, whether it's for reconnaissance, whether it's for training or whatever it is, you know, you have to really put yourself into that situation and know that you are actually training as if it's real, so that when or if the moment comes where it is real, you're not just sitting on the sidelines, you know, because you didn't train or you didn't practice or you didn't do anything like that. So just remember, guys, get out there, get training, you know, put some hours in, put some reps in. Don't be afraid to try new things, you know, like this is my first time doing this specific color pattern. Usually I do more of like a woodland coloration, but, you know, go out, try it, see how it is, you know, you can only go up from there, you know. So I just want you guys to remember to stay safe, and remember, death is the rule, survival is the exception, guys. We'll see you guys later.